Hey, it's Tim here, and I'm delighted to let you know that tickets for my first ever live Piano Teachers Conference have just gone on sale. This two-day event called the Piano Pivot Live will be held here in Melbourne in January 2020 and will be unlike any live event or workshop you've experienced before. Not only will you be inspired by our amazing speakers, including Samantha Coates, Anita Collins, Nicola Canton, Philip Johnston, Carly McDonald, and many more, you'll also get to participate in practical hands-on workshops, masterminds, and implementation sessions that guarantee you'll not just be inspired, you'll also have a plan of action to take back to your studio. A limited number of early bird tickets are now on sale at pianopivotlive.com. If you've ever thought about visiting Melbourne or indeed Australia, then this is your perfect excuse. Come and enjoy the summer sun in one of the most beautiful cities in the world while gearing up for your best year of teaching yet. Head to pianopivotlive.com now to find out everything you need and to secure your seat today. I can't wait to see you in January.
Welcome to the Creative Piano Teaching Podcast, the place where teachers from around the world meet to share innovative ideas about music education. Listen and learn as we help you motivate your students, grow your income, expand your studio, and become a more creative piano teacher.
Welcome back, teachers, to the Creative Piano Teaching Podcast, your weekly dose of creative inspiration, fun conversation, and teaching tactics for your studio. I can't believe it, but this is episode number 10 of Season 2, 2019, which means this is the end of the season until we kick off again later in the year with our final season, Season 3, 2019. In the meantime, my name is Tim Topham, your host for the show, and you are listening to episode number 170, and you can grab a full transcript and show notes at timtopham.com/170. And today's episode, as I mentioned last week, is all about business opportunities for piano teachers and how some ideas about online selling and creating online courses can be a great way to bring in some extra money as a music teacher. My guest today is a musician, author, entrepreneur, and business coach living over in New York City. He owns and operates his jazz education website, learnjazzstandards.com, and is the host and founder of the Passive Income Musician podcast, where he teaches other musos how to make a living as a music teacher online. Welcome to the show, Brent Vaartstra.
Thanks for having me, Tim. I appreciate it.
Now, I was actually interviewed on your show, and we actually met through one of our mutual friends, Christopher Sutton, who runs Musical U, superstar. Highly recommend everyone checks out what he's doing over there, particularly in regard to musicality, skills training, and oral work and things like that. But we connected, and I came on your podcast, episode 24, which was all about building profitable music membership sites. So if anyone's interested in that, then head over to Passive Income Musician. And we're going to talk about a number of the things that Brent does to bring in some extra income to his teaching business. One of them is a podcast. Another one is just his general online teaching business, which we're going to get to in a second. But Brent, introduce yourself. Let us know a little bit about you and what you're doing these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, really excited to be on, really excited to speak to everybody. I am a jazz musician living here in New York City. I play the guitar, so not piano. However, I do teach music. I teach music specifically online. I do gig here around the New York City area, but I'm best known as the jazz musician behind the website learnjazzstandards.com, which is a blog, podcast, videos all geared towards helping musicians become better jazz musicians, learn how to become jazz improvisers. And so I'm really passionate about that, teaching others online. That's how I make my living. And then I have a podcast called the Passive Income Musician Podcast, which is all about me teaching other musicians how to do what I do. And I'm really excited about that because, doing this changed my life. And so I'm just happy to spread the love to everybody else too.
It's fantastic, and I can highly recommend Brent's podcast. If you're a music teacher out there and you are interested in looking at some of these other ways to bring in income other than one-on-one teaching, and I remember whenever I listened to one of your episodes, right in your introduction, it's always like your introduction is about how to avoid exchanging time for dollars or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's what
that's absolutely right. So when I talk about passive income on the Passive Income Musician Podcast, what I mean for that with music teachers is not trading your time for money. And what I mean by that even further is you're not necessarily having to make the exchange of being there for a Skype lesson, for example, or being there for a private lesson, where you do have to be there in person and then you get the money for it. And there's this time exchange, and that's great. And I'm all for that. I even still do a little bit of that myself, but mostly I do other systems where I'm able to scale that, teaching online courses, ebooks, and there's a lot of other different passive income sources for musicians that I also suggest as well.
And so you've mentioned the podcast and the online lessons that you do. Do you have any other streams that are bringing in income for you at the moment?
I do. So I have a YouTube channel, and so there's Google ads that I get off of my YouTube channel, ebooks. I have courses that I do, like you just mentioned. I sell some software. I have like a glorified affiliate relationship with the software company that really just works for my audience super well. And that's mainly it. A little bit of Amazon, but really not much. I really try to focus my revenue streams on particular ones to really optimize them, maximize them as much as I can.
Yeah, and I mean, for YouTube, I'm interested in this because I've recently started optimizing my YouTube channel and uploading weekly and things like that. I mean, that as a revenue stream, do you see that as something that you'd promote to people, or are there better ways to do it?
I think there's a lot better ways to do it. So YouTube, you really have to, you're laughing, Tim. Yeah, you really have to scale it quite a bit. I have 100,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. That's a pretty decent audience for YouTube.
Huge.
Yeah, and so I do see some ad revenue from that. But to get that, you're really kind of getting pennies on the dollar there. You're not really getting, you need to really drive a lot of traffic to your YouTube channel. That's really just like kind of, in my case, a little bit of a side income that comes in. And really, I actually use my YouTube channel more as a lead generation to give people great, valuable content in my musical niche to serve my audience. And then eventually get them into my infrastructure, get them into my communities, serve them even more, and eventually offer them some of my premium products like courses to serve them even more there.
Great. And for those who are listening and heard Brent say lead generation, not a word that piano teachers necessarily use. So tell us, what's lead generation? What does that mean in piano teaching terms?
That's a great question. I appreciate you asking that. That's really what I talk a lot about on Passive Income Musician is marketing and business for musicians, because those poor musicians tend to not know as much about this stuff. And if we could channel a little bit of our creative energy, a little bit of our teaching know-how into some of these business and marketing things, I mean, I think some really amazing, great things can happen for us as musicians. So when I talk about lead generation, I'm talking about bringing people into my infrastructure, to my circle, to sell my product. So a really practical example is I'll put up a YouTube. I'll actually give a real example here. I have this YouTube video called 40 Jazz Standards You Need to Learn. That's really my target audience, people that want to learn jazz standards and learn jazz through the repertoire, the music. So I give them a list of 40 jazz standards. At the end of the video, I recommend a little lead magnet, we call it, which is just a free guide to help people actually learn jazz standards, because maybe they know which jazz standards to learn. What's the next step? They want to actually figure out, how do I actually learn these? Like, what's the best way to learn them? Because jazz is kind of a complex music to some. So I give that away, and that's through an email address. I let them know that they're signing up for my mailing list. So then they get this guide, they get value, and then a little later I send them an email with an offer to get my Jazz Standards Playbook. The Jazz Standards Playbook walks you through 10 in-depth studies of jazz standards that if you know these jazz standards, they're really going to help you, and that's my paid product. So when I talk about lead generation, I'm talking about serving my audience with free content, bringing them into my infrastructure, in this case, my mailing list, and then serving them with one of my products that I know can help them more with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great explanation of that. And what an online marketer would call that whole process that Brent's just talked about is we'd call that a funnel. An internet marketing funnel of some sort, where people come in the top. A whole lot of people hopefully see his YouTube or sees my blog articles or whatever it is. And then some of them will opt in for his free product, his download. And then some people will hopefully pay for his courses and things like that. So that's known as a funnel, and teachers out there may have heard about that and wondered what it was. So that's what we're talking about. But look, before we go too tech deep, too early on, what I'd love for you to do is take us actually back to the start, because while you've got all these income streams happening at the moment, I'm sure, like all of us, you started teaching guitar in your house or whatever it was. Take us back to when you started teaching. What got you into it, and what did it look like when you began?
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe knowing your why for doing anything as a musician, especially as a professional musician, is really important. So the story is really important. As far as just starting teaching, that really started honestly when I was in high school, and especially when I didn't have quite enough money to go to the colleges I wanted to study jazz further. I got really into jazz in high school. I was a total nerd. But I just couldn't quite gather the scholarship money I needed to go to these schools. I took a year between my senior year of high school, my freshman year of college, just teaching students locally in the area where I was from. And that's where my real teaching experience came in, just like teaching every single week, multiple times a week, just honing those teaching chops. When I started doing what I'm doing now, the story really comes out of slight desperation. You go to college,
well, it's a good way
and
to
the interesting
build a business, right?
yeah, exactly. You go to college, and the interesting thing is in my particular case, I was living in New York City, and I went to get my bachelor's in jazz performance. And Tim, I'm not sure if you know what a bachelor's in jazz performance gets you in this world. It gets you very little. So the funny thing about college for me was that I noticed that everybody's telling me how to become a better musician, but they weren't telling me actually how to make a living doing it. And I was a little keen to this understanding. I understood what was happening. So I, of course, was hitting the streets, pounding the pavement, getting gigs, hustling studios in Manhattan and the Bronx and Brooklyn and Queens, trying to get into these, studios for lessons. And I was successful in doing so. But the problem with that is I was living paycheck to paycheck. And, I realized a few things. First of all, that I didn't like staring at the empty spaces on my calendar and constantly hoping, I'm looking at next month. And if I don't fill in those spaces, what's going to happen? Am I going to be able to pay for my rent? Am I, going to be able to eat food? Am I going to have my pizza money? And that's a stressful way to live. And I have some friends that are okay living that way. I personally realized I was not okay. And also realized that the students I was teaching that there's only so many students I could teach before it kind of capped out, especially in a competitive market here in New York City. So I had something cooking in the back burner there, which was my online jazz education business, learnjazzstandards.com. And I started really honing in on that. I really started putting a lot of efforts into that, creating content, free jazz lessons for my audience, really trying to start learn about business and marketing. And I did pretty much everything wrong you could possibly ever do. Like, it's really just it was really a trial and error effort of learning how to be an online music teacher, creating content and doing this sort of thing. That's kind of where that all came from. That's the rough outline of my story there.
I want to go back to some of your mistakes a little bit later on,
Yeah.
but for now, you said you started putting things online, I assume perhaps on YouTube, or was it on a blog? Where was the first content that you were putting out that wasn't to do with your performing?
The very first content was just a blog. So it was a blog where we would put things on, I guess you could say simultaneously YouTube, because originally the website it's different now, but originally it was really just a resource to literally help people learn jazz standards. Like that was it. Just like, here's a bio of the song, here's chord charts for it, here's some videos so you can learn the melody and listen to famous recordings, and here's a backing track, which we made with some software, and we put them on YouTube, which, by the way, was kind of our big boost into the YouTube world, this accident that people actually liked all those things. So I guess you could say that YouTube was one of the places, but the blog was kind of like the real cornerstone, the big infrastructure of all that.
And back then, you didn't know that it was going to be a potential income source, I gather. So why did you start? What was the reason for putting anything online?
Part of that is I had a friend who was in it with me, right? So we were kind of doing this together as kind of a fun thing to do together, to work together and build this thing. So that was part of it. And part of it was just in my studies, the kind of stuff that I was putting online was just studies of these jazz standards. And so I was in college at the time. I was excited about this stuff. I wanted to learn more jazz standards. I want to be the best musician ever. Back then, my goal was I want to tour the world and be one of the best jazz musicians ever. My aspirations look a little different now, but that was what it was back then. So I was inspired to do it there just because I was passionate about it. It wasn't about necessarily making a bunch of money. I didn't really realize that it could be something that I now make a full-time living doing until much later.
It is almost an exact mirror image of my own journey. I was trying to be a music producer, a DJ and remixer, which I gave myself 3 years to make an income from, and I probably made $100 in those 3 years. I spent hours and hours and hours. Look, I had a great time. I learned a lot, but I realized that I had to do something different. In the process, I got into piano teaching, or back into it, and as part of that, I got just so passionate about it. I wanted to learn everything I could. I went to every masterclass, lecture, workshop. I took courses, and I started just putting up blog articles and videos because I enjoyed it. I was passionate about it. I just wanted to share what I was learning. It sounds so similar to your own story. And then, of course, it's a matter of going, well, actually, there's a whole lot of people watching this and reading it. So what can I give them that I could actually make a business from? And I assume you probably got to that same spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important too that you point out that you're passionate about it. You're passionate about doing that, about learning, and that's really why you started putting up stuff in the first place. Because sometimes when people, I really have to clarify this all the time on my show. When people hear the word passive income, for some reason that what comes to their head immediately is, oh, that's easy, and it can't be. It couldn't be further from easy. It's actually very hard. Now the rewards can be huge, but the dedication and the learning curve and the struggles in between, those are real things. It's not easy. So if you're not passionate, well, you're not going to make it. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, it's going to be a struggle for sure. And I also I get the term passive income, and I think if people think of it as income that's both scalable and also income that you can generate money from by only doing something once. Now, the something that you do once might take months to put together or a year, but once it's done, you can continue to reap the benefits. Would you agree with that approach?
100%. I just turned in my latest ebook, which is going to be an ebook and companion course I'm launching in May, and to my designer today to get the thing finished off. And, every year that I come out with a product, I like to say that I lose a couple years of my life, even though, Tim, you mentioned before that doesn't look like it. I appreciate that. This year, I only lost 1 year. So that's a good move in the right direction. But absolutely, you put in a lot of hard work to create a book, to create a course, to create a resource for your target music students. And it's hard work. But the truth is, the first product that I ever sold on my jazz education website, I still to this day, that was 3.5, maybe 4 years ago now, I still to this day make money off of that product every single week. And that's the magic of the stuff that we're talking about right now.
Out of interest, is that an ebook or is that one of your videos or courses?
It was an ebook. It was a Jazz Etudes ebook. At the time, again, like I said earlier, I did many things wrong. I had no idea if that would be something that they would want. I was lucky that it was enough of something that my audience wanted. And like I said, I still make money from it today. But that's what it was an ebook.
That's great. So while we're talking about teaching online today, as Brent said right at the beginning, this isn't about teaching one-on-one Skype lessons or FaceTime lessons online, which of course is a perfectly legitimate way to teach students. And I know a lot of piano teachers do that. It does open up opportunities to teach people across the world that you wouldn't otherwise be able to teach. It also allows you to teach during the day because of time zone differences. So there's a lot of advantages if you're interested in teaching online, but it is still a one-to-one exchange of time for money. So Brent, tell us how your website and your business is set up so that while you're still teaching online, it's scalable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it might be helpful to answer that question. Also, just go over some like you were mentioning some pros and cons and things like that there. Some pros of the quote unquote passive income model is, like we talked about, you're not trading your time for money, right? And again, like I said, that means you're not actually there to exchange your time there. You're building an asset that you can, like a course or an ebook, that you can sell over and over again. It's scalable, right? You can, you can reach more people at once than just that one-to-one. You can find students from all around the world, although you can share that with teaching online Skype lessons as well. But the big con of all of this is that you can't replace one-on-one lessons. You really can't. You can't ever replace that experience of getting that training to individually reach that person. That's important to say. All of that being said, the stuff that I do on my business, you can absolutely start building as a side income. You can continue to teach one-on-one lessons, but start imagining your life. What would it look like if you were able to have that one ebook that continued making sales month after month? So the way I have my website set up, and it's really simple. It's basically Content Marketing 101. And I already explained a little bit about it. I have a blog, I have a podcast, I have a YouTube channel. This is where I deliver my free content. I have a target audience. I know who they are. I know what they want at this point, and I make lessons for them that cater to them, that can help them. People discover me. People get on my newsletter. I keep them warm. I'm sending them newsletters every single week, telling them about the free, new, valuable content I come out with. And then I get them, I get them to understand that maybe some of my products might be valuable for them, that they might want to engage in some of those. And so that's how I monetize that. But it's all about serving my audience first. It's all about building that community first. Does that make sense, or can I maybe dig into some more details there?
Well, no, it's a great overview and a great explanation about it all. What advice would you give to piano teachers who are listening, who perhaps have some skills in multiple areas? Maybe they're worship church musicians, or maybe they're incredibly good sight readers, or maybe they are struggling jazz pianists who are now really good jazz pianists, but they were classically trained or something like that. So they've got a specific skill or story or interest base. How did you go about working out who your ideal audience was? And have you got any tips around that for teachers listening?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're kind of already saying the kind of business that you want to build, which is a niche business. Like, yeah, you might be a piano teacher, right? And, that's broad though, right? We know that piano is broad. You could teach anything. You could be teaching kids. You could be teaching adults. You could be teaching senior citizens. You could be teaching rock music. You could be teaching blues piano, gospel piano, jazz piano, classical piano. You could be teaching specifically only Bach etudes. I don't know what it is, right? So, there's a lot of different or musicals, right? I mean, that's a whole thing in and of itself, Broadway musical type theater music. So niching down is important. And Seth Godin talks about in his book, This is Marketing, he talks about finding the smallest viable market. And I love this because what we want to do is we want to find something small, right? We want to get specific about the piano students that we're trying to reach. Because if it's too broad, then you're just competing with Tim Topham and everybody else, right? So you want to dig in, and you want to get specific about what you want. But you have to make sure it's viable, right? You have to make sure that if you want to teach polka piano, people who are clowns show for kids' birthday parties and play polka piano, you have to make sure there's enough of those people out there that actually want to hear from you. And if there is, great. But you have to, you definitely have to validate all of that, right?
Yeah.
So the first tip is obviously just niche down. And how do you know? Well, you know what your talents are, right? What are you good at? What is your talent? Because that's going to be your niche. And think about it, right? And then validate it. Is there anybody else doing it? If there's somebody else doing it, that's a good sign. Because if no one else is doing it, you might have to really critically dig into that a little bit further. You might want to dig in and start asking the hard question. Are there forums out there? Are there Facebook groups where people are talking about this? And if you find out, no, there's no clown parties with playing polka piano, then okay, maybe you want to put that one to the side. You want to go for something else. But you want to validate all these ideas. And how you know is simply by guessing. And then you create content. And then you see what kind of content, what kind of free piano lessons that you come out with are people resonating with the most. And you'll find the ones that resonate the most. And then you'll make another piece of content that's related to that or that builds from that. And you'll see how that works. And you'll eventually figure out who they are. Then you'll build a mailing list. You'll start to find out, how old are these people? Are they 25 through 35? Well, that's different than, 55 to 65, right? So you start discovering that way by trial and error. Know your talents, figure out your niche, then start putting yourself out there and go from there.
My Music Staff is the easiest and most efficient way to run your music teaching business. This complete business-in-a-box solution has it all. I've even written a blog post on how I personally used My Music Staff to transition to automatic monthly payments. All my students now receive a monthly automatic invoice and their credit cards are charged instantly. It couldn't be easier. From a single teacher studio to multi-teacher schools, it has you covered. It will help you effortlessly manage your students, scheduling, billing, and more. It works on any device, so you're always well informed and in control of your business, even on the go. My Music Staff will allow you to focus more on your clients instead of being consumed by overwhelming and time-consuming administrative tasks. My Music Staff can also be used as a tool to connect your students and parents outside of their weekly lesson. Not only does it allow students to notify you of any upcoming absences and even reschedule missed lessons, it's also a great way to keep your students engaged and learning outside of their time with you. You can leave lesson notes to guide their practice, assign new repertoire, and even upload content like video tutorials, audio, sheet music, and more. This immersive tool is a great addition to any studio looking to improve their business and set themselves apart from the competition. Use My Music staff to add additional value to your lessons and help you stand out from the crowd. There's no better time to try it for yourself. Just go to mymusicstaff.com and sign up for their free 30-day trial. It's the perfect tool to navigate your studio through the busy back-to-school season. And the best thing is that once you have got a core of people, and to be honest, in my experience, you don't need that many to start having success. Once you've got that core niche of people, you can start asking them what they want. So you can actually get their help. And I remember doing that back in 2014, I think it was. I'd been blogging and videoing for about 4 years. And I had by that time a core of people. And I said, right, what is the biggest pain? What's the biggest struggle that you have at the moment? And the answer for me was how to teach students who come in wanting to learn a pop song. I'm classically trained. I have no idea. And that was what I created my first course all around. So I'm totally with you. We are 100% aligned in our thinking on that. It was interesting too, when it comes to audiences, my own experience was that I knew I wanted to serve the piano teaching industry. And right at the start, I could have gone one of two ways. Serve students online, people who are learning the piano, or serve teachers. And one of those was, I can't remember what the name of the book was, but it talks about blue and red oceans. Have you read that book, Blue Ocean Strategy?
No, but I'm interested though.
So one of those was very much a red ocean. The metaphor is, it's a feeding frenzy. There's sharks and there's thousands of fish and there's blood in the water. The water's red. It is a packed market. And that's the one of people who are delivering services and videos and courses to students. There are thousands, probably millions of YouTube channels directed at students. But I went and had a look at teachers and it's like, oh, actually, there's not a lot of people supporting teachers. That's a blue ocean. It's pretty clear. So that's why I made my call to go down that path.
And that was like niching down. That was getting targeted about who you wanted to serve.
Exactly right. Yeah. Blue Ocean Strategy, I think, is the book. Certainly something people could Google anyway. No, that's such a great overview of how you've come to do what you've created. When it comes to your actual website, what is your sort of flagship product, if you have one?
Yeah. So my flagship product is one called 30 Steps to Better Jazz Playing. And it's one of my highest, as far as how much it costs. It's the most expensive product, but it's really the product that I am I'm a believer in all my products, of course, but it is the one where I'm like, hey, if you really want to become a better jazz musician, take this course, because it's not just about theory. It's not just about this or that. It's really an all-encompassing practice program that can really help you, and give you bite-sized pieces. And that's really what the best courses are, by the way. And lessons in general are ones where you start with step one, something that people can chew on and build up from there. So that's my flagship course. However, I kind of do have a suite of products where I have some lower level products and some upsells, like ebooks are kind of lower level products, which I upsell with companion courses so that people can help actually get through the book, because how many of us don't get through the books that we buy? It's really sad. There's so much valuable information in there, and they're the hardest ones for me personally to make. So I really want people to get value out of them. And so I kind of build my products around a suite, knowing that I want some low-level products that eventually can get people up to my higher-level products and just move from there.
Yeah, and some people may know the name Russell Brunson. I'm sure you're familiar with him. He's written a number of books, one of them Expert Secrets, which I really love. And in fact, his first book called .com Secrets was one of the ones that really helped me establish what my business was when I began. He calls exactly what you've described the value ladder, and helping people, once they realize they've got something to give an audience, to see that, yes, they can give something away for free for an email, and then maybe for $7 they can give them their ebook or whatever it is, and then you have your companion course, so it's a little bit more money, and then you've got what you would probably call your flagship courses, or the bigger payment option, bigger charged courses. But of course, people won't necessarily just jump and spend $500 or whatever it is with you if they've got no idea who you are. But if you can move them through this ladder, which I assume is what you're doing, then you've got more chance to convert them and convince them that you know what you're talking about and this is great value. Is that right?
Absolutely not with the expertise of Russell Brunson, but for sure, that is the general idea. And like again, just to reiterate the value ladder that you're talking about here. The first step would be like that free lead magnet, right? The free guide that I talked about that I gave at the end of my video. Actually, the first one is the YouTube video. Then it's the lead magnet, the free guide that you give me your email address for. Then it's one of my ebooks. Then it's the companion course, and then it's my big practicing program or my ear training course, right? So it just builds up from there.
Yep. And you've got multiple ladders, I guess, right? Going to different flagship products. Is that right?
100%. Yeah. I have, again, you called them funnels. I have multiple different funnels that I'm constantly tweaking and leading people in through a different experience. Because if someone's coming because they don't know a lot about jazz theory and they need to learn more about jazz theory, well, then I want to send them towards my Zero to Improv ebook, which is all about beginning jazz theory, learning improvisation that way. If you're someone who's like die hard, I really want to get better, I want a practice plan, I'm tired of being aimless in my practicing, well, then you're going to want to go this particular direction, right? So I have different funnels, if you will, different avenues for people to travel down depending on what their needs, what their pain points are, which you talked about earlier.
Yep. And just remember, Brent started with one product, I'm sure, one ebook or one really easy download. He might have had some free videos, but just remember, I mean, it sounds like he's got a lot of stuff there now, and he does, but he's also been doing this for 4 years or more. So don't get put off by the fact that it sounds like there's just too much to do. We all start with one thing, working out what that niche is and how you're going to serve them and what can you offer those people. That's the crucial beginning spot. Brent, how long does it take you to create? You mentioned it can take you a year to create an ebook, which is massive. I got to say, that's huge. How long do you tend to put into something like one of your courses, and how many modules do you have?
Yeah. In general, it actually takes me 4 to 5 months. I really go hard at it. I outsource stuff like editing my music, recording my music at this point. So at this point, I have some of those things in place, but I want to, of course, speak to, all of your audience right now who maybe have none of those things. They don't have any revenue coming in at all. And it could take up to a year of doing that. It depends on what the product is, right? Sometimes we can worry too much, like we have to give too much information or too much value. Sometimes maybe the course we need to make, all that is required of it is maybe 2 hours and 5 lessons of video, right? Maybe that's all that's needed to get massive transformation. So whatever your product is that you want to create for your target piano students, just think about what's the transformation, not what are they going to get. They're going to get 10 million hours of video. They're going to get, 10 million handouts. I mean, that's overwhelming, right?
Yeah,
you can get that on YouTube. What you want to get a process, something that you can consume. So maybe it could only take you 1 month to make the product that will help your audience, right? So for me, sometimes that's 5 months. Sometimes that's 6 months. I've created products in 2 months. So it really just kind of depends on what the product is. I know that's not an exact answer, but hopefully there was a lesson in there.
yeah, there was. And it does depend so much on what you're creating. And don't try and do too much. That's one of the biggest takeaways from today's chat. Some of the best free downloads I've given away are the simplest one-page checklists or cheat sheets. They're the ones that people use the most because they are making things easier. So if you are aiming to do 10 hours of videos in 10 modules and things like that, then you don't have to. I mean, maybe if you're teaching, rockets, then maybe you do need to, but for most of us, you probably don't. Keep it simple, particularly when you get started. Now, the big question here, how long, can you remember, did it take you to get to 6 figures just through your online business? Can you remember?
Well, I mean, technically, the website started in 2010. So that's a long time. That's 9 years, but that's also probably 5 or 4.5 years of just not knowing what I was doing, which is really
a goal in mind, right?
Not having a goal in mind, not understanding even like at the beginning that you could even make any money off of a blog. For me, that was something I was off in the stratosphere, nerding out on music and just being the creative guy that thought that if I play the most beautiful notes in the world, I'm going to change the world. And, and hey, that's great. I believe in that to a certain degree, but that's not necessarily going to pay the bills. And so it took me a while to come around to really start going, oh, hey, there's something here. And I would say when I really started digging down, creating products, creating the right content, building a mailing list, which is super important, by the way, Um, I would say around 4 years. It took me around 4.5 years of really digging in hard and really starting to invest myself in education. And again, like, that's really what I talk about on my Passive Income Musician podcast is like, hey, here's all the dumb stuff I did. Here's some of the good stuff
Don't
that
do
you
it.
could do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to make it a little bit simple, a little less pain, a little less few throw in the towel moments,
There's always going to be a lot of self-learning that you have to do. If you are interested in this entrepreneurial path of bringing in income from a different revenue stream than you've ever done before, trust me, it takes a lot of listening and reading, and it does take some trial and error, even with great podcasts out there to help you not make too many mistakes. You do have to be so passionate and committed, not only about the subject, but also about your own learning, because you will have so many questions, and half of the time you've got to just try things out. And podcasts can definitely help you get there, which is why it's so good that you've created something for musicians and music teachers, because it's so important for us. We've got so many great skills. We're already teachers. To teach a wider audience with some online background, I guess, is just so sensible, I think.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And one thing, if you don't mind me adding, like, we do, I like to be real with people and not, saying, oh, hey, passive income musician, you can do it. You're going to be rich. That's not going to, I don't say anything. I want to be real with people. It's hard, but that's any business. And as a piano player, think about how much time it took you to be able to get the skills that you have on the piano. How much time it took you to become a piano teacher where you can make money teaching other people how to play the piano. Think about the investment in that. And so that's something to keep in mind. Nothing is just easy. Nothing's simple. Building a business in general is hard. Ask any business owner, no matter what it is about, right? It's difficult. But if you invest yourself, in learning, if you put your head down, if you're passionate, great things can happen. Absolutely.
And you can have a massive impact on people around the world too, which is it's just so exciting. All right, let's finish with just a few questions. What about technology? I know that is a stumbling block for a lot of people. The technology required to record a course, to put an ebook together, to get a website up and running. Have you got just a minimum viable product route, to coin a term that's used a lot? What's the simplest way that people could get started with some of that stuff? Do they need to go and spend thousands on equipment?
No, absolutely not. You don't have to do that. You do have to set up a simple website. And of course, there's a lot of great options these days to make things simple, like Wix or Squarespace. I personally would never recommend those. There's a lot of reasons why. SEO purposes, that's search engine optimization, for those of you who don't know, and a lot of other integrations and things like that. WordPress is where I recommend building a website. There's lots of free themes. There's also some paid themes where you can basically have a website set up for you. A few tutorials, invest yourself in just learning a little bit about setting up a website. It's not that hard. So I do recommend everybody have a website. That's a home base. Don't just build your whole audience on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or just a podcast, because, at least with YouTube, with social medias, you don't own those platforms, but you do own your website. You do own your mailing list. So you also, by the way, that goes to the next thing, mailing list. MailChimp, you can set up a free account on MailChimp up to 2,000 subscribers. 2,000 subscribers will get you a long way. And hopefully by that point, you'll have something to monetize with, so that at least you can be paying your domain fees over on your website, and you can be paying for your mailing list at that point. So set up a mailing list. There's also a lot of free WordPress plugin tools that you can integrate your mailing list with, so that it's easy. So it's not hard. You don't have to be a web developer. Now, if you want to start putting up free content on YouTube, let's say YouTube is your way, like that's the best way for you to teach, which oftentimes with music, it can be a great way to teach, is that visual element, depending on what you're doing. Really, you just need your smartphone. Your smartphone has a lot of great abilities on it, or technically even, and I would invest a little bit in audio, but there's really cheap USB mics and things you could do if you're doing a podcast, but you could even technically just do it with your phone, I mean, so there really shouldn't be too many barriers to entry. And as long as you have your website up, you have a blog, at the very least you can type, right? Can you type? Can you maybe make an image? Maybe if you use Finale or Sibelius to notate music, it's really easy to extract images, put them up on your website. It's a pretty low barrier to entry. Of course, everything you have to learn about, you have to do a little bit of studying, but you can start somewhere. And I think that's the biggest thing. Start. Just start. Don't make up excuses of why you shouldn't start today. Well, I don't know how to set up a website. I don't know how to make a mailing list. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know how to post anything on YouTube. Just start. Get started today. You don't have to worry about having the best sound quality, the best video. You can start creating great lessons for people that need your perspective on playing the piano today. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I look back, I don't know about you, but I look back on my early videos and I just cringe. Oh, it's just awful. And the sound's terrible. But, you start somewhere and then you can afford to buy that new microphone or upgrade your camera or whatever.
And if you don't make mistakes, and if you don't make mistakes at the beginning anyways, you're not going to learn. That's the best way to learn anyways. It's just, oh, hey, I could probably change my video that way next time. Or, hey, I got a comment on YouTube that said, hey, show your fingers better. Okay, aim the camera down a little bit, right? You figure this stuff out as you go.
I'm glad you talked about WordPress as being your preferred platform for websites. I'm definitely in that same boat. And we actually have a course for all our Inner Circle members. It's called our Online Studio Launchpad course. And it's literally a step-by-step guide to building a website on WordPress, self-hosted with your own domain, and a guide to follow along with. It's just super, super easy. So if you're not an Inner Circle member and you're interested in either upgrading your website or creating one from scratch on WordPress, then make sure you join so you can grab that course from us.
That's fantastic. That's awesome.
All right, a couple of little final questions. I did promise that I would ask you about some of your mistakes. So can you tell us what mistakes did you make early on? If you could pick one or two big ones that you just know is so easy to do, but can so easily be avoided.
Yeah. Start building your mailing list. I mean, email, it's not going away. Don't rely on social media. For right now, mail is a great way to reach your audience, to serve them your free content. I didn't do that for the longest time. And I remember the day, and, this might sound intimidating to some people that I wasn't even trying, but I remember the day, like years and years after starting this website, our web developer had just put like a little opt-in at the top. I never even paid attention to it. I never even looked at the mailing list. And then I looked at it one day and realized that there was 800 people in there that I was doing nothing with. Nothing at all. And that was the day where I was like,
you'd got them.
Yeah, and now today, that's how I make the majority of my revenue is through email marketing. So start a mailing list. As far as other mistakes go, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I think a lot of people, like, you really are being vulnerable. You're putting yourself out into the public when you're doing online lessons. It's not just about you in a small community anymore. It's not just about you one-on-one with your students. It can be scary to hear what people think about you. You get this, we call it imposter syndrome in the entrepreneurial world, where, you feel like, well, maybe I'm not really qualified to do this. Maybe I'm not good enough. For the longest time, I wouldn't even put comments on my blog. I was too afraid what people would say. And that's ridiculous. Put yourself out there. As soon as I started putting a face to my brand and who I am and, saying, hey, I'm the guy behind this, I'm teaching this, here's what I want to show you. That's when I really started my business, starting to get more personable and better customers, and just things started to grow. So those would be my two mistakes.
Great advice. And finally, any podcasts or books or blogs that have influenced you and really helped you that you could share with us?
Yeah, sure. So just kind of a business book that sort of just, it's not necessarily 100% on exactly what I do, but a book that really got me to think about marketing and business was called Contagious by Jonah Berger, just about why things go viral, or not necessarily viral in the online sense always, but why things become big and popular, and just really started teaching me about marketing. Chris Guillebeau, who I'm actually going to be featured in his upcoming books, 100 Side Hustles in June. I'm really excited about that, even though it's not my side hustle. But he was like an entrepreneur that I really was influenced by as well at the beginning. He had a great book called $100 Startup. That's a great basic, just business book that I think any musician will get a lot out of just investing themselves into. There's lots of podcasts. Amy Porterfield's a great online marketing podcaster. Pat Flynn, who have taken a lot of
list building as well, doesn't she?
Yes, list building is what she's big on. Pat Flynn is someone that I respect and admire. I've obviously taken some influence from him. Darren Rouse from ProBlogger.com. He has a podcast as well. He's one of my first podcasts I started listening to and just being inspired by him. So those are just a few.
He's an Aussie too. Lives in Melbourne.
He's an Aussie. Yep. I believe he lives in Melbourne. Is that right?
Yeah, he's not far away at all, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
so
great.
yeah, those are just a few to get you all started.
Fantastic. And interestingly enough, 2 books that I haven't read. I thought I'd read quite a lot of them too. So I'm going to look them up myself. Contagious and the $100 Startup. It sounds good. And we'll look out for that other book by that same author. Who is the author that is going to feature you?
Oh, Chris Guillebeau. He's the same guy who wrote the $100 Startup. I'm one of the people featured in his upcoming
case
book.
Studies sort of things.
Yeah, case studies.
Yeah,
yes, absolutely. One of the 100.
Yeah, right. That's great. Well, look, thank you so much, Brent, for your time today. It's been really great hanging out with you. Have we missed anything crucial that I should have asked you that we haven't got onto, or have we covered it?
No, I think we've covered it. I mean, just guys, like, get started. I mean, don't hold back. If you think that this is something that could really help you starting as a side hustle to supplement some of your income, teaching piano lessons, one-on-one, then I would highly encourage you to dig into some of this stuff that we would talk about today.
Beautiful. Well, if you've enjoyed hanging out with Brent, then make sure you tune into his podcast. It's at passiveincomemusician.com. Where else would you recommend people go to find out more about you, Brent?
Yeah, you can just go to passiveincomemusician.com. You can find that on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're just interested in some of my jazz education stuff, learnjazzstandards.com is where I do all that stuff.
Brilliant. Thanks heaps. Have a great time. And hopefully we'll get to meet up one time when I'm over in New York.
Yeah, sounds good, Tim. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's interview with Brent. Always inspiring, and I do like hanging out with him. I've actually been a guest on his show, so do go over and check that. We'll pop a link in the show notes so you can find it really, really easily. Great fun chatting to him, and I hope that it might have given you a little bit of inspiration about ideas for your own income-generating strategies. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of this season. The next season of the Creative Piano Teaching Podcast is going to be kicking off on October 4, 2019. And look, thank you again so much for tuning in. Whether this is your first episode or your 170th episode, I value you so much. And it is an absolute delight to me that you've decided to spend some time listening and hopefully learning a few things that can help you with your teaching and your studio building. I'm Tim Topham, and this is the Creative Piano Teaching Podcast. Until next season, signing off. Thank you so much for listening. I'll chat to you soon. Now, just before you go, if you enjoyed today's show, I'd love for you to check out my Inner Circle piano teaching community. It's the go-to resource for piano teachers looking to continue their professional development, connect with other teachers and experts from around the world, and to access hundreds of world-class training resources, including our academy courses, lesson plans, teaching videos, technology help, and much more. Whether you're just starting out or have been working hard to build your studio for a while, the Inner Circle community will give you the skills, support, and confidence you need to grow the studio of your dreams. Whether that's about teaching a small number of students one-on-one in your home or hiring a commercial space, employing other teachers, and building an entire music teaching empire. With courses on both the teaching and business side of running your studio, live coaching, and our thriving community forums, you can get quick answers to questions, set yourself challenges, get feedback on your ideas, and feel confident teaching in new and exciting ways. For more information on how to join us inside the Inner Circle today, head over to timtopham.com/community, and we'll see you on the inside.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Creative Piano Teaching Podcast. We'd love to help take your teaching to the next level as a member of our supportive community. Use the coupon Piano Podcast for $100 off an annual membership of Tim's Inner Circle today. To find out more, head to timtopham.com/community.